Ambassador Vector stood at the observation deck of the Galactic Council's diplomatic station, his crystalline exoskeleton refracting the distant starlight into 1,000 colors. Behind him, the assembled representatives of 12 species watched the approaching human delegation with barely concealed amusement. "They arrive in that?" chirped Minister Kixall, her avian features twisted in what passed for a smile among her kind. On the viewport, a modest human frigate glided through the void, its hull scarred and patched from countless journeys. It was perhaps 200 meters long, dwarfed by the magnificent warships of the council members that surrounded the station like silent sentinels. Vector's people, the Krenzari, had ruled the spaceways for 3,000 years. Their battleships were works of art, each one a kilometer of gleaming alloy and devastating firepower. The Kixall fielded living ships, grown from engineered organisms that could regenerate damage in minutes. Even the newest council members, the insectoid Vralthex, commanded vessels that made human technology look like children's toys. "They have only been spacefaring for 2 centuries, Vector reminded the assembly, though his tone carried the weight of condescension. "We must not expect too much. After all, they still use chemical propulsion for planetary launches." The laughter that followed was polite but pointed. Humanity had applied for council membership 3 times now, each application rejected. They simply didn't meet the military standards. How could they contribute to galactic defense when their entire fleet could barely match a single Krenzari dreadnought? The human delegation disembarked with characteristic efficiency. Their leader, Admiral Sarah Chen, moved with the calm confidence of a predator, her dark eyes taking in everything. She wore a simple uniform, devoid of the elaborate decorations that other species favored. "Honored council members," Chen began, her words translated instantly by the station's AI. "We come once more to petition for membership in the Galactic Council." Vector stepped forward, his mandibles clicking in what his species considered a diplomatic gesture. "Admiral Chen, humanity's courage is not in question, but you must understand our position. The Council faces threats from the Outer Rim, from the Devourers, and worse. We require members who can contribute meaningfully to our collective defense." He gestured toward the viewport. "Your ships, while adequate for your needs, simply do not meet our standards." Chen's expression didn't change. "I understand your concern, Ambassador. Perhaps a demonstration would be appropriate?" "A demonstration?" Kixall's feathers ruffled. "Admiral, we have studied your military capabilities extensively. Your largest warship masses barely 50,000 tons. Our smallest combat vessel exceeds that by a factor of 10. "Nonetheless," Chen replied, pulling out a small communicator, "I believe seeing is believing. With your permission?" Vector waved a manipulator appendage dismissively. "If you wish to display your forces, we will not object. Though I warn you, comparison will only highlight the gap between us." Chen spoke quietly into her device. "Prometheus, you are cleared to approach." Full display. For several minutes, nothing happened. The council members began to shift uncomfortably, exchanging glances. Had the humans' demonstration failed before it began? Then Kixall's head snapped toward the viewport, her pupils dilating in shock. "By the first sky," she whispered. Space itself seemed to tear open. What appeared was not a ship emerging from faster-than-light travel. It was a transition that looked almost violent, as if reality had been forced aside. And through that wound in space-time came something that made every alarm on the diplomatic station scream in unison. The vessel that entered normal space defied easy description. It was massive, easily 5 kilometers from bow to stern, but that wasn't what silenced the council chamber. The hull was wrong, composed of some material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange geometries adorned its surface, angles that hurt to look at directly, and along its flanks weapons ports gaped like the eyes of ancient gods, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. "What? What is that?" Vector's translator struggled with his species' term for existential dread. "That," Chen said calmly, "is the UHS Prometheus, humanity's first and only Titan-class warship. She mounts weaponry you've never seen because we didn't develop it for space combat. We adapted it from our research into quantum mechanics, particle physics, and exotic matter. Each of her main cannons can generate localized gravitational singularities. Her point defense system uses directed gamma-ray bursts. And her armor—" Chen smiled for the first time. "Well, her armor isn't really armor at all. It's a layer of stabilized strange matter that makes conventional weapons about as effective as throwing rocks at a planet. The Prometheus hung in space like a monument to impossible engineering. Smaller ships, human destroyers and cruisers began emerging around it, each one bearing the marks of a military doctrine the Council had never encountered. You see, Chen continued, you were examining our merchant marine and calling it our fleet. We humans have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. We've been speaking very softly for 2 centuries while we carried out our real shipbuilding program in the Oort cloud, far from prying eyes. Vector found his voice, though it trembled. How many of these titans do you possess? Just the one, Chen admitted. Prometheus took 60 years to build and consume the resources of 3 entire asteroid belts. But we have 47 Leviathan-class ships, each about half her size. And our standard battle group, well, she gestured to the viewport where more human vessels continued to arrive. We have 300 of those. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted in a dozen languages, demanding explanations, threatening sanctions, or simply expressing shock. But Vector remained silent, calculating. He had studied human history during his preparation for this meeting. He knew they came from a world of constant warfare, where survival meant innovation or extinction, where other species had achieved space travel and then enjoyed relative peace. Humans had clawed their way up from a gravity well while fighting themselves every step. They hadn't been hiding weakness. They'd been hiding strength. Why reveal this now? He asked, cutting through the noise. The chamber fell silent. Chen's expression grew serious. Because your intelligence is correct, Ambassador. Something is coming from the outer rim, something worse than the Devourers. We detected it 6 months ago. A fleet that makes even Prometheus look small. They'll reach Council space in 18 months. She paused. You need us. And despite your rejection of our previous applications, despite your condescension and your assumptions, we're willing to help. Because that's what humans do. We protect the tribe, even when the tribe doesn't want us. Vector looked at the Prometheus, at the absolute monument to human ingenuity and determination floating in the void. He thought about his people's beautiful but ultimately conventional warships, designed more for show than for the kind of total war humans seem to prepare for instinctively. The Council will need to vote, he said finally. But I suspect, Admiral Chen, that your application will be accepted this time. Chen nodded. We'll be waiting, Ambassador. We're patient. We've had practice. As the human delegation departed, Vector remained at the viewport, watching the Prometheus and her escort turn toward the outer rim. Somewhere out there in the dark, something terrible was approaching. But for the first time since the detection, Vector felt something unexpected. Hope. The humans had been watching. They'd been preparing. And they'd been underestimated. That, he decided, was a mistake the galaxy would not make again.